There's a place on Earth where a single city pulls in more gambling revenue than the next 10 gambling destinations on the planet combined. Not the next 2, not the next 5. The next 10, all of them, added together, still don't catch up. That place is smaller than Manhattan. You could drive across the entire thing in 15 minutes. And at its financial peak, it generated $45 billion a year from casinos alone. For scale, the entire Las Vegas Strip that same year, every resort, every poker table, every slot machine combined, pulled in roughly $6 billion. That means this single city, barely larger than an airport, was out-earning Vegas by a factor of 7 times over. The city is Macau, sitting on China's southern coast, a 45-minute ferry ride from Hong Kong, a name most people outside Asia have genuinely never heard. But the buildings constructed there, poured onto reclaimed ocean floor that didn't exist 30 years ago, will actually make your jaw drop. Today, we're counting down 7 casino buildings that cost nearly $30 billion combined and took 15 years to build. A Ferris wheel spinning in a figure 8 between 2 skyscrapers, a hotel with 0 internal support columns, a wave pool generating genuinely surfable waves, 20 stories above street level, and sitting at number 1, a building so financially absurd, it earns back its entire construction cost in a matter of months. If you're already shaking your head, hit like and subscribe now so you don't miss the next one. Let's go. Number 7, MGM Macau. MGM was one of the first American brands to plant a flag here, arriving with $1,250 million and a goal that sounds almost naive on paper: prove that world-class luxury could actually work inside a former Portuguese fishing colony. The building they raised had a 3-wave glass front designed to mirror the shape of the ocean itself, with a Hong Kong architecture firm weaving Macau's maritime history, Portuguese sea trade, and the age of exploration into every visible detail. At its heart sat a 3-story open atrium called the Praça Grande, topped with a painted ceiling 25 meters overhead that made you feel like you were standing under open Lisbon sky rather than inside a casino. Here's where it gets genuinely difficult. Macau sits on reclaimed land, and the ground beneath these buildings isn't rock or solid earth. It's compressed sand and silt dredged straight off the ocean floor. To anchor a 35-story tower on ground that unstable, engineers had to drive foundation columns 40 meters straight down until they finally struck real bedrock. The walls themselves were built from triple-layered glass engineered to survive typhoon winds up to 250 kilometers per hour. Because in Macau, typhoon season isn't a maybe, it's a scheduled event on the calendar. The building took 3 years to complete. When it opened in 2007, it generated $2,800 million in its very first year alone. MGM had spent $1,250 million and clawed it all back in under 2 years, a return that simply doesn't happen in ordinary real estate. It only happens in Macau. And this was only number 7. Number 6, Studio City. MGM had already proven luxury could work here, but the developers behind Studio City asked a completely different question. What if we stopped building purely for gamblers? In 2015, Melco Crown Entertainment opened Studio City on the Cotai Strip and built something that had genuinely never existed before anywhere on Earth. The theme was 1930s Hollywood glamour fused with Art Deco architecture. Gold, drama, cinema palace energy, deliberately built to look like a movie set because that was the entire point. But the real showstopper was outside the building entirely. Suspended 100 meters in the air, strung between 2 separate skyscrapers, sat a Ferris wheel that rotated in a full figure 8 loop. They called it the Golden Reel. 23 steampunk-themed gondolas, each weighing 8,000 kilograms fully loaded with passengers, tracing that figure 8 pattern high above the city skyline. The engineering problem here was one nobody had solved before. How do you build a Ferris wheel that anchors itself between 2 buildings that sway independently in the wind and shift independently during earthquakes? The answer was 3,000 tons of structural steel in a cable stay design, with supercomputer modeling calculating stress at every individual joint. The result was a ride that could take on typhoon-force winds without swaying or vibrating by any measurable amount. The Golden Reel alone cost $150 million, roughly the price of a small regional airport, spent purely on a Ferris wheel. Beyond the engineering spectacle, Studio City added Batman-themed rides, live entertainment shows, and a full nightclub, deliberately building for families and young visitors with zero interest in gambling. Annual revenue hit $1,900 million, not the biggest figure on this list, but Studio City proved something that reshaped the entire industry going forward. In Macau's future, entertainment could pull in just as much as a baccarat table. Number 5, the Parisian Macau. Las Vegas Sands had already built the largest casino building on the planet right next door. So naturally, they looked at that success and thought, we conquered Italy, France is next. $2,700 million, 4 years of construction, And standing at the center of it all, a half-scale replica of the Eiffel Tower, 162 meters tall, rising directly out of a Chinese casino resort built on reclaimed ocean sand. Here's what elevates this past a novelty stunt. They didn't just build something that resembled the Eiffel Tower. The developers actually contacted the descendants of Gustave Eiffel's original engineering firm and requested his exact design specifications. Identical rivet patterns, identical structural geometry, identical proportions, replicated down to the detail. 6,600 tons of structural steel assembled to match the Paris original as closely as physically achievable. But Paris sits on solid limestone bedrock, and Macau sits on compressed sand, so engineers had to completely reinvent the foundation while keeping the visual design identical from base to spire. They drove 120 reinforced concrete piles, 25 meters deep, to build an artificial bedrock platform capable of holding 6,600 tons of steel, swaying in typhoon winds. And here's where it turns genuinely staggering. The original Eiffel Tower was engineered for winds up to 120 kilometers per hour. Macau's typhoons routinely push 220, nearly double the load the original design ever accounted for. Every joint and connection point had to be recalculated and reinforced from scratch, while still looking exactly like the Paris landmark to any visitor standing underneath it. The steel for this tower cost $45,000 per ton, against a standard structural steel rate of $3,000 per ton, 15 times the going price, spent purely to get the look precisely right. 6,600 LED lights wrap the tower for a nightly light show synced to music, and the observation deck alone draws over 2 million visitors a year. Annual revenue, $2.1 billion. Las Vegas Sands put one of the most recognized structures in human history on a strip of reclaimed ocean land in China, a level of cultural audacity that's genuinely hard to grasp until you're standing under it. Number 4, Morpheus Hotel. In 2016, the world lost Zaha Hadid, the architect who spent her entire career designing buildings that looked like they were actively defying physics. 2 years after her death, Macau unveiled her final completed project, and it was breathtaking. The Morpheus Hotel doesn't look like a building at all. It looks like someone took a glass skyscraper and punched 3 massive rectangular voids straight through it, side to side. 40 stories tall, with no internal columns interrupting the space and no support beams crossing the open-air gaps. Just flowing geometry that looks like it should collapse the moment you glance at it. To make this actually stand, the engineering firm Arup broke the entire structure down into millions of individual mathematical points, calculating load and stress at every single one. The result required 12,000 tons of structural steel. For context, roughly the weight of 30 fully loaded Boeing 747s. But here's the part that's almost impossible to believe. Every single piece of that steel was a unique shape. 28 different component types, each curved differently, each carrying load in its own specific direction. Those pieces were manufactured across 6 different countries and shipped to Macau for final assembly. With a precision tolerance of 1 millimeter, a single piece off by 5 millimeters, and the entire exterior shell simply wouldn't fit together. On top of that, engineers had to account for Macau's humidity expanding the metal, daily temperature swings shifting the structure, and the building slowly settling into reclaimed land over years, every variable calculated, every tolerance met. Morpheus cost $1.1 billion for the hotel structure alone, and went on to win the American Architecture Prize. Every one of its 770 rooms is a different shape, a direct result of the flowing interior design. Zaha Hadid designed this, knowing she might never live to see it finished. It became the most photographed building in Macau, and it stands as proof that the most impossible-looking ideas are sometimes exactly the ones worth building. Number 3, Grand Lisboa. While American casino companies flooded into his territory, Stanley Ho was watching quietly. The man who had run every casino in Macau for decades, a total monopoly that made him one of the most powerful figures in Asian business. He was never going to let newcomers outshine him without a response. In 2008, he opened Grand Lisboa and made absolutely certain no one could miss it. Grand Lisboa is a 261-meter tower shaped like a golden lotus flower, wrapped in over 1 million individual LED lights. When they're running, the building is visible from nearly every corner of the city. Stanley Ho made sure it stood taller than the Bank of China Tower in Hong Kong. And this was never an architectural choice. It was a statement written in steel and light. The petals covering the exterior aren't decorative. They're part of the building's actual structural skeleton, meaning the entire tower carries its weight through that outer shell, leaving every interior floor completely free of columns from ground level all the way up. To make that possible, engineers drove the foundation 60 meters into solid granite rock beneath the reclaimed ocean ground, deeper than most subway tunnels on Earth. Every one of the 1 million LED panels has its own power line. its own cooling connection, and its own maintenance access point, with 30 full-time staff whose entire job is managing nothing but the exterior lighting system. Inside the lobby, a 218-carat pink diamond worth over $10 million hangs as casual decoration. Not in a vault, not behind museum glass, just sitting there as ambiance. The chandelier nearby is solid crystal and weighs 1,000 tons, the equivalent of 7 Boeing 737 aircraft hanging from a single ceiling. The restaurant at the top became the world's highest Michelin 3-star dining room. Grand Lisboa generates $4.1 billion every year and holds the highest revenue per room of any casino in Macau. Stanley Ho spent $2.4 billion to remind the entire industry exactly who built this city. It worked. Number 2, Galaxy Macau. Everything before this was a single building with a single identity. Galaxy Macau decided that was thinking far too small. $5.9 billion, 5 separate hotels under one continuous roof, 4,000 rooms, 120 restaurants, enough that you could eat somewhere different every single day for 4 months and never repeat a venue. Convention space covering 50,000 square meters. And sitting above all of it, a wave pool generating real surfable waves 1.5 meters high on a building resting on ocean sand. The wave pool holds 575,000 liters of water, with pneumatic generators buried beneath the pool floor pushing compressed air through underwater chambers to summon those waves on command. Engineers had to guarantee that the sheer force involved wouldn't transmit through the pool structure into the building's floors below, which meant designing a custom isolation system specifically for this one feature. Nothing like it had ever been built before. Beneath the wave pool winds a lazy river 2,200 meters long, curving through an artificial beach built from 350,000 tons of filtered sand, cleaned and treated specifically to feel like a real coastline. Because Galaxy Macau doesn't do approximate, it does complete. The diamond lobby features actual diamonds embedded directly into the ceiling. 4,000 rooms spread across 5 hotels: Galaxy Hotel, Banyan Tree, Okura, Ritz-Carlton, JW Marriott, each with its own design identity, its own atmosphere, its own reason to book a stay, all connected under one structure covering 1,100,000 square meters of floor space, larger than 120 football fields laid side by side. Construction happened in 2 phases. Phase 1 from 2008 to 2011, Phase 2 adding entirely new hotel towers from 2011 to 2015, meaning they were literally building new skyscrapers while guests gambled on the floors directly below. Annual revenue, $6.8 billion, the highest grossing resort in Macau and the highest grossing resort anywhere on Earth. Galaxy didn't build a casino, it built a self-contained world and charged people admission to live inside it. Number 1, the Venetian Macau. And here we are, the one that started as an idea so large it sounded like fiction. It tops this list not just for what it earns, but for what had to happen before a single wall could go up. In 2004, Las Vegas Sands made a decision that looked genuinely insane at the time. They were going to build the single largest casino building on the planet, on a strip of land that for most of human history had simply been the bottom of the ocean. The Cotai Strip didn't exist before Macau's casino boom began. Engineers pumped 30 million cubic meters of sand and silt off the seabed to physically manufacture the land it now sits on, enough material to bury Central Park nearly 10 meters deep. Then they drove 40,000 concrete piles into the ocean floor, one by one, to build a foundation stable enough for what was coming. Before a single room existed, before a single wall was poured, this project had already become one of the most ambitious land creation efforts in construction history. Then the building itself began. 980,000 square meters of floor space, ranking it among the 10 largest buildings on the entire planet by area. So massive that new staff members are handed physical maps on their first day, because people genuinely get lost inside it. The theme was Venice, Italy, and when Las Vegas Sands says Venice, they don't mean Venice inspired. They mean Venice recreated. Over 200 artists spent 18 months hand-painting frescoes across acres of ceiling to recreate the painted skies of the actual Italian city. Life-size replicas of Venetian bell towers, bridges, and arched walkways run throughout the interior. 3 indoor canals, each over 300 meters long, carry real water that's continuously filtered and recirculated. 39 gondolas, complete with gondoliers, who genuinely sing traditional Italian songs while rowing guests through what is, underneath it all, a shopping mall. 3,000 suites. No standard rooms at all. Every single guest, regardless of what they booked, gets a suite with a minimum of 70 square meters of space. 350 retail stores line the canal corridors. An indoor arena seats 15,000 people for concerts and sporting events. The climate control system runs over 50 separate zones simultaneously. keeping the casino floor cool, the canals humid at precisely the right level, the kitchens properly ventilated, and thousands of hotel rooms comfortable, all at once, all day, every day, year-round. It took 3.5 years of round-the-clock construction, with crews on site 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in rotating shifts. The total cost was $2.4 billion. Annual gaming revenue alone, $5.4 billion, and that figure doesn't even include the hotels, the restaurants, the retail stores, the arena events, or any entertainment, just the gambling floors by themselves. $5.4 billion a year from one single building. That means Las Vegas Sands spent $2.4 billion to build it, and earns that entire investment back in under 6 months of normal operation. Every year after that is pure profit. The Venetian Macau is the undisputed largest casino building on Earth, the most financially efficient piece of real estate ever constructed, and it sits on ground that was literally ocean floor within living memory. So, what did Macau actually build? 7 buildings, roughly $25 billion in combined construction costs, raised in under 15 years on land pulled straight out of the ocean. The combined peak annual revenue from these properties alone approaches $30 billion, more than the entire GDP of Portugal, the country that colonized Macau and shaped its identity for over 4 centuries. The engineering breakthroughs born from this construction boom have reshaped the building industry worldwide. The typhoon-resistant glass wall systems developed for these towers now protect skyscrapers across Asia. The techniques for raising massive structures on reclaimed land rewrote coastal engineering standards globally, and the climate systems managing dozens of separate environments inside. A single building went on to influence the design of modern data centers. Macau today holds 45,000 hotel rooms, more casino floor space than the entire land area of Monaco, and 80,000 direct casino jobs, with $4.3 billion in new projects already approved and underway through 2026. The city is still growing, still building, still pushing the edge of what's physically possible. Macau didn't just build a bigger Vegas, it built something Vegas never even thought to attempt. A city where the buildings themselves are the main attraction, where the architecture is extreme enough that people fly in purely to stand inside it, where the most profitable real estate on Earth was created from ocean sand, a political loophole, and the sheer audacity to treat impossible as a starting point. If this video gave you something to think about, a like takes 2 seconds, and it genuinely helps this channel grow. Subscribe and hit the bell so the next one lands right in your feed. Here's the question I want to leave you with. Macau built all of this in 15 years on ocean sand. What do you think it looks like in another 15? Drop your answer below. I read every comment.